Hey, this is Rob Campbell. Today we're joined by Vans Global President, Doug Palladini. Doug, I know you have no shortage of stuff keeping you busy these days, so thank you for making time to join us.
That's a pleasure, Rob. Happy to be here.
Excellent. So maybe we just start out by talking about the general state of the business right now. Like where do you stand given everything that's been going on?
Yeah, it's been interesting times we've been living in, right? So the last day that we were in our Costa Mesa global headquarters office was March 12th, and today we're at July 9. So yeah, it's been an interesting situation to deal with. We went from operating a very big, robust global business. We in fiscal 20 we passed $4 billion in sales to the majority of our own stores and all of our partner stores closed almost overnight. It hit us in waves in that, it started in Asia, then moved through Europe, then moved through the Americas. So we did see it coming a little bit, but there was nothing we could do to stop it, right? It's the tidal wave you see coming from out at sea, but you're at sea level and you can't get away from it. So you basically turn the switch from on to off almost overnight. And the majority of the time since then has been figuring out how to respond accordingly. Short term, midterm, long term, what do we need to do to keep our company afloat? We're part of the VF Corporation, so we're part of this larger company. What do we do to preserve capital? What do we do to take care of our people and ensure that they're safe? And then how do we begin to act and get on the front end of it? So it's been quite a learning experience. I would say that, Rob.
So what have you prioritized that what to do first, what to stabilize and what to move forward, move in that direction?
Yeah, absolutely. Paul Van Doren has this famous quote that we use at Vans all the time. He was our founder. He started Vans back in 1966 in Anaheim, California. And what he says is that Vans isn't a footwear and apparel company. Vans is a people company that makes footwear and apparel. So job number one for us was to take care of our people. And we look at that in a number of different ways. The first way is our Vans family. Those are our employees. And we wanted to ensure their safety and well-being first and foremost. And so we took every possible step to make sure that they were going to be healthy. Like I said, we closed our office and all our offices immediately. We helped people understand what it was going to take to set up their work from home. We had a lot of listening to sessions and talked a lot about how to create the right work-life balance. Think about, Rob, a family in Hong Kong where you have the mother and father both working full time with two small children in a 800 square foot apartment. That's a different kind of working environment, right? So we had to make sure all of our people were taken care of. And for Vans, that's tens of thousands of people. We also had to make sure that our retail employees were safe and protected. And as I'm sure you've read, we agreed very quickly. And one of the reasons I'm very proud to be a part of VF is we agreed immediately to pay our employees in full for the duration of until we were able to get our stores reopened. And I think we're on one of the only companies that made that commitment. So there weren't furloughs, there weren't layoffs. We agreed to make sure we wanted to make sure those people knew that they were taken care of, and we think that was absolutely the right thing to do. And then second was about preservation of the company itself and making sure that, like I said, we were preserving capital, that we were making intelligent choices about spending, and understanding where the cash flow was going to come from. And it was obvious with all the stores closed, it was going to come from e-commerce. So it put a lot of energy there. And then the third group out was our fans. And we really wanted to make sure that they felt taken care of as well. And Vans for that was really about saying, hey, we understand this is an anxiety-riddled, fearful time. We understand that we're dealing with a situation none of us have ever dealt with before. And we understand that you may not be in the mood to hear about us trying to sell you things right now. So we want to meet you where you are. We want you to know as our fans that we appreciate you, even when you're not in a place to buy stuff from us, that our relationship goes well beyond that. And so we created what I think are some very thoughtful things. We did a thing called Bouncing Off the Walls, where we created content that would help people sort of enjoy, get some relaxation, get some entertainment, out of difficult times of boredom or anxiety, whatever at home. And then we also understood that we had an obligation to support all the people who have supported us all the year. And so we started a brand new program called Foot the Bill to support the small businesses around us. And I'm happy to get into that in more detail if you'd like.
Yeah, definitely. I want to hear a lot more about it. But I think maybe before we move on to that, though, maybe just go back and talk a little bit more about, how this affected that evolution toward direct to consumer. With your retail shut down, did it kind of accelerate things that Vans VF were already doing and maneuvering toward that direction?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it put all of our energy against the one channel that was operational, right? And for us, that was our owned ecom and our partners ecom as well. That was the one channel that was still viable. And so we had to take some evasive action to make sure that, for example, our distribution centers were safe. You think about the thousands of dedicated Vans employees who work in distribution centers around the world. We had to ensure their safety. We were still asking them to come to work every day as our essential workers, and we had to make sure that they were safe to do that. And that took a lot of thinking. As you know, it's a logistically heavy part of the business, right? When you're accepting orders coming in, when you're shipping out one box with 10,000 pairs of shoes to one customer, and you're shipping out one pair of shoes in one box to Rob Campbell. It's a lot of logistics, and having all those people moving around, we had to really make sure they felt safe and that we had their backs going to work as well. And then internally, we had to make sure that our e-commerce engine was robust enough to serve that increased demand, which was an immediate spike. It was an immediate spike. I'm not allowed to share. We have Q1 results coming out at the end of July, so I'm not allowed to share the specifics yet. But I could tell you that it was a serious spike in our business all over the world in .com. As you can imagine, we have all that demand, and it goes from multiple myriad channels into one channel. You're going to see a pretty significant uptick in the velocity of your business.
Do you feel like a lot of that spike will remain? It's accelerated the overall direction, or you think some of that will drop off significantly once retail comes back online?
There's a direct correlation between the number of stores open and the amount of e-commerce that we do. There's no doubt about it. But will there be a permanent change into the amount of penetration e-commerce represents as a percentage of our total? That is also absolutely true. So, but I think both are true.
So you talked a little bit about bouncing off the walls earlier. You have a new initiative there. Maybe talk a little bit about how Vans still conveys, the brand itself, the culture and the authenticity, in a new environment. Like what's kind of the same and what's different about the vehicle?
Yeah, Vans' purpose and what we're all sort of lined up behind is this concept of enabling creative expression in youth culture. And Rob, as you know, we do that through the lenses of art, music, action sports, and street culture. Okay. So we were encouraging our fans to help enable their forms of creative expression in this different environment. And the best example that I have is our Shoebox challenge. We asked people to go get an old Vans shoebox and to see what they could make of it, to post their creative outcomes of that work online. And thousands of people posted incredible pieces. I mean, Rob, people, with all this free time on their hands, right? They're dedicating 2 weeks to making a menagerie out of a Vans shoebox. It was really profound. And I think that speaks to who we are. Again, it's not always about selling stuff. In our case, this was about where you're bored, you're full of anxiety. How can we take your mind off all the BS that's going there? And the amount of comments, our fans were blown away by what the other fans were posting, and they were inspired. And it kind of took off on a life of its own. So I think that I'm very proud of that.
Can you give a quick summary of the Foot the Bill initiative?
A huge part of the culture in board sports, in surfing, in skateboarding, and snowboarding comes from the places where those products are sold. As you know very well, Rob, the best board sport shops are a really critical part of our culture in action sports. And these are businesses that were built out of love for the activity, love for what they do, love for skateboarding, love for surfing. And a lot of these guys run on pretty slim cash flow. And these are also guys that support us, Rob, and we never lose sight of that. We, like I mentioned, we've gotten pretty big as a company, but we never lose sight of where we came from in these small companies. And we heard very loud and clear that they were worried. And so in thinking about what we could do to support them, we launched a project called Foot the Bill. If you're X skateboard shop in Los Angeles, you can come onto our customs engine and you can put your logo and a print that you love on one of our shoes. And then we will offer that product for sale. And your company, your shop will receive the proceeds from that sale. And we did that for about 80 accounts in the United States, plus accounts in Europe and even in China. And again, a powerful outpouring of love there. I think it was so nice to see that, yes, this is a reminder that we do need to support these accounts, that these are important to us. And we heard it back from the accounts themselves, but I think almost more importantly, from people in their neighborhoods, right? So the people who lived around that shop were like, yeah, this is really cool. We all need to support that. And those people became advocates for selling more of those T-shirts and those shoes that supported these accounts. And honestly, Rob, it's not like we were cutting $1 million checks from those proceeds to these tiny skate shops, but they were $5,000 checks and $10,000 checks, and they made a difference. And they made a difference. They made a difference in just that financial security, but also in reminding every value and the critical role that these important skate surf shops, even restaurants, even bars, even music venues that we supported, and their role in our culture of creativity.
Like you mentioned earlier, you still have to preserve the brand itself. You still have to, it's still a business. You still have to, look ahead. How would it, a time when there's such a demand for, resources and so many things going on, how do you justify, how are you able to get a program like Foot the Bill the attention it deserves and the execution it deserves in the bigger scheme of everything?
Yeah, I have a few answers to that question. The first, speaking for Van's point of view, the loyalty of our fans is our bloodstream. It's how we live or die, and so we have a very long view of the relationships with our fans. Where I would say other brands were forced to take very short-term action. We were fortunate enough that we really stuck to our guns in terms of that long view. And as I mentioned before, I think we realized very quickly that we'll get some sales, but the better opportunity here is to deepen the connectivity we have with those fans by doing the right thing, by doing the Vans right thing. And that eventually will come back to pay us. And, whenever I talk to investors, Rob, this is what I tell them. I say, Vans' objectives aren't financial gains. Vans' objectives are doing the brand right things that will yield the financial gains. And I think things like Foot the Bill, I think things like bouncing off the walls, even what you see now happening with Black Lives Matter, which I know we'll talk about, those are playing the long game, that consumers more and more want to align themselves with brands that they feel a deep and emotional connection to, brands that they feel represent who they are as people, not just what they wear on their bodies, what they stand for. And we need to stand with those people in good times and in bad. And so the longer view allows you to say, we will reap the rewards in the long term because we're doing the things that we think are right, and we know that our fans will join us and believe that we are doing the right things for the right reasons. So it's all about taking the longer view. The other answer to your question is that we work for a very strong parent company in VF that has what we call a fortress balance sheet, meaning that they will take whatever steps necessary to make sure that we are in a healthy financial position, and they have a high level of financial acumen that allows us to take that longer view, and we're grateful for that on the daily.
So you're able to recognize what the right thing is to do, but now you still have to do it. You still have to execute. And you're talking about a staff that had left. You said you left your office in early March. What were some of the challenges of having to work quickly and be nimble with everyone remote, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, Rob. I think a mea culpa on the part of the Vans team is that, while we pale in comparison to the size of some of the large athletic brands, if coming out of our world, we're far and away the biggest, right? So we've had to learn how to scale, and in that scaling, there's become a lot of process and a lot of calendarization, and a lot of layers, right, to enable that scale. And the hardest part was setting all of those things aside. Okay, so we couldn't get everybody in a room. That would have been the easiest thing. We got everybody in a virtual room, which has it's safe, right, for our employees, but in other ways, as I'm sure we've all experienced, Zoom can suck. And we said, let's set aside the calendars, let's set aside the processes, and let's just do some good things here. Let's make some stuff happen. And once we were able to sort of loosen those shackles, I think we were able to really put our heads down and get busy. And the other thing, Rob, I think that's important for people to know, that we consider it a real competitive advantage that most of the things we do at Vans happen inside Vans. We're not agency driven. It's more likely than not when you see something that was created internally. We have some great external partners, don't get me wrong, that help us every day, but for the most part, we're internally focused. So we had a good group of talented people ready to go to work and make things happen. And so we were able to do that very quickly as a result.
So transitioning over a little bit into the racial inequality initiatives that have also kicked in, because dealing with a pandemic isn't enough, and now we have some social upheaval thrown into the mix. So Vans, made some very strong statements in public and through LinkedIn across regarding the issues, and you've joined the Stop Hate for Profit initiative as well. So I guess why, again, with the why, making priorities for these things. Why is this so important for Vans to make a stand right now on this issue?
I would say it's important for Vans to always make a stand for the right things, not just in this case, but always. And I guess the first thing I would say, Rob, that's important is that we accept this opportunity with a big dose of humility, and that means our first obligation is to look internally at where we are not meeting our own expectations when it comes to things like racial equality, social justice, environmental sustainability. Those are all important things, and we always have to look first at what we are doing. And in the case of diversity, in the case of racial justice, what came back is that we're not sufficient. We're not doing enough. And I'm not going to lie, it was hard to sit there and watch on live TV. I can't tell you how surreal it is. You're watching live television of one of your stores being looted by people who you considered to be your fans. That was hard to take. But what I would tell you is that with that humility, we were able to look inside and say, the job has to start with us. We tried to listen very carefully internally to our people of color into where they were seeing gaps, and externally to our fans, listening to them about their expectations. And they very clearly, Rob, expected us to stand with them. And so it became very clear what we needed to do. We needed to speak forcefully about what we believed in. We needed to be humble that internally we have things to fix, right? Our representation in our offices of people of color is not where it should be. In our retail stores, we think we're much closer to where it should be. But in our physical office spaces around the world, we have work to do, and we need to admit that first. And then we need to go out and act forcefully to stand with our fan base. And that's where you saw the actions that we took. That's where we give money to people we believe are doing good things, the NAACP, Color for Change, etc. Are the beneficiaries of those funds as a starting point. Okay, it's easy to write a check. Then what are you going to do? Well, then we are going to make it very clear that in our world, Black Lives Matter, and not even that they matter, because we think matter is a very low bar, but that they are beloved, and we lift up Black people in this country because they deserve that. And then we're going to stand for them by not allowing hate speech to continue. And we're not going to allow our dollars to go into the coffers of partners who would allow hate speech to continue. You've heard this phrase before, I'm sure. It's not a moment, it's a movement. We've really embraced that. And you will see permanent, ongoing actions for us until, if and when we see a time when we feel like we can say that there is true racial justice and there is true equality, and there is true diversity in the way that we show up as a brand.
So rather than just a marketing initiative per se, this is tied into a cultural examination kind of internally.
It has to be. I mean, the finger has to point at us first in order for us to be sincere and authentic, and to speak with a voice that we believe will resonate with our fans who are expecting that of us, right? And so I think it does have to be that balance of internal and external, and Rob, I cannot tell you how profound it has been. We've hosted all these listening sessions across Vans and across VF to just let people talk and to hear what they've experienced. And that context has been powerful. It's been gut-wrenching, but it's been important to allow those voices to be raised, and to be able to hear directly the very personal, the very deep meaning that this racial equality movement has for people. It goes way beyond the products that we make and the marketing we do.
Maybe just we have a few minutes left. I just thought maybe we'd hit on some of the other great things. You talk about the things you're doing for the employees. You mentioned retail workers still receiving pay, even though they're not in the stores. The stores aren't open. I mean, what are some of the other things that Vans has done, for its people? And then just get a sense for what you feel the morale is, and, kind of the feeling within the company right now, how people are just kind of, getting by, or what their general day to day.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about the store reopening thing for a minute, because I think that's a thing people read about and see on the news every single day. We are trying to open our stores in the most thoughtful way we possibly can. And what I mean by that is we have a very robust process in which we evaluate on a daily basis every single store in our fleet and decide, is it safe for our employees to go to work there today, first and foremost? Have we put in place the necessary safeguards to protect both them and our fans who are coming through the door that day where we're allowed to have a store open? Do we have the right resources on hand to ensure that people can get a mask if they want one, can get gloves if they want them, that there's hand sanitizer everywhere, that we have those plexiglass things up, that people are social distancing and waiting in line, and we have the right number of people in stores? I can tell you we have been exhaustive in thinking through what it takes to open a store safely. And when it's not safe after opening, reclosing them, which we've had to do lately with the spikes that you've seen in various parts of the country, where we are not shy about closing them again. So you have this sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step back thing going on when it comes to store openings. But the only thing that matters in making those decisions is, are we ready to keep our employees and our customers safe in doing that? And so I think that's a good example. Would we love to have all of our stores open? Yeah, we sure would. We do pretty darn well when our stores are open. The demand for Vans is as high as it's ever been, and we love that. And we want to serve our consumers. We think the experiences in our stores are a competitive advantage for us that we haven't had for a few months. But we're not going to do it if it's not safe, if it's not legal. We have to be able to ensure the safety of our fans and our employees first and foremost. So it is 1 step forward, 2 steps back. The recovery is going to be uneven. You've seen what happens when you open too fast. You've seen the horrifying pictures of people who don't give a crap, and that's really disappointing to see for all the people who are risking their lives to keep us safe. but so it's not going to be, it is going to be uneven and a bit messy, but we're continuing to push forward every day through the lens of what's best for our people.
So despite all the challenges out there right now, what are some of the things or a major thing that gives you reason to believe and keeps you optimistic for the future right now?
The work that our teams are doing to think about the new normal is a daily source of inspiration for me, Rob. As you know from being around our brand for a long time, a major competitive advantage for Vans has always been live events. That sort of hand-to-hand, Steve Van Doren cooking for you, US Open, House of Vans, Vans Park Series, those things that actually bring us all together under the Vans banner have been a source of strength for us for 54 years now. And we saw that evaporate overnight, right? How long do you think it's going to be before thousands of us are all together in the same place? Not anytime soon, right? So that's a challenge. And the way that our team has responded to that, I mentioned the Shoebox Challenge. I think that's just the proverbial tip of the iceberg for us. What you're going to see roll out here are a lot more virtual things that we can do to maintain that culture, that competitive advantage we have about being an enabler of creativity and of creative expression for all of our fans. I think you'll see that more and more going forward, but in new ways, leveraging new technology in a virtual space. And so I am inspired every single day by the things I see our team working on to that end. So stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of interesting things happening. I think we're going to really continue to inspire people with the work that we're doing to keep that momentum that we have, but in the world of the new normal where we can't have thousands of people together in one place.
Well, Doug, I want to thank you for your time and your transparency and all the insight today. It's been great to hear, and I know everyone's looking forward to listening to all the great stuff you had to say.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Much appreciated.